Hi, I'm James Schilling-Law. I'm here at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. with Eben Peck, who's the Executive Vice President Advocacy for ASTA, the American Society of Travel Advisors. And we are here during ASTA Legislative Day, or days, and it's a far different situation than when we were here over a year ago. We're now here where really advisors are looking for help from Congress, from the government, to survive, to get through the next 8 months, whatever. And we're going to talk to Eben about some of the things that ASTA is really pushing this year, and you're going to find out all about that and more on Insider Travel Report. Now, Eben, first of all, it's great to see you again and live. Amazing, you know. I mean, it's been a while, right?
We did a Zoom a couple months ago. I think that was the last time I laid eyes on you. So it's good to see you in person.
Now, let's talk about this. We're all down here. You have about 175 members down here for the ASTA Legislative Day, and you're really trying to get Congress's attention. But what is the legislation currently on deck that you want to see passed? Let's start with the SAVE Act and exactly what that is.
Sure. Well, let me talk a little bit about how we choose the issues for these legislative day fly-ins is what they're called. So it's got to be something in our mind that's actionable by Congress, so that member of Congress can walk out of that meeting and go and do something. So that's co-sponsor a bill, sign a letter, etc. We try to stay away from kind of indirect issues. I would love to complain about CDC all day, but there's not a whole lot directly a member of Congress, especially a rank and file member of Congress, can do about CDC regulations. So we're looking for things that they can act on immediately. So actionable, bipartisan. Ideally, if it's not every issue is bipartisan. The set of issues that we're bringing forward is bipartisan. We have members of all political persuasions. So actionable, bipartisan, and finally, easily understood and explained. Not just by our members, but easily understood by the member of Congress. So we try to stay away from stuff that's wicked complicated, you know. So that's what we came up with our set for this year.
Okay, so what is part of that set?
So I'll start with number one it's called the SAVE Act, Securing Access for Venues Equity Act. It's introduced.
That's a mouthful, right?
It's a mouthful. They love their acronyms. Introduced by Congressman Amodei from Nevada. Who is winning an award from us tonight at the reception. I hope you'll be there. This bill would include travel agencies and other hard-hit businesses in what's called the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program, otherwise known as the Live Event Grant Program, otherwise known as Save Our Stages. This was created at the end of last year by Congress. It's a $16 billion pot of money designed for the live events industry. Our argument is our members' businesses haven't been physically shuttered with yellow tape across the door, but the effect of the CDC rules, the State Department rules, state and local government rules over the past 14 months has been the same. Right. The government shut down our businesses, and we deserve to be in this program.
Right. Now, the other one that's on deck coming pretty soon is the effort by officials in Alaska, the senators and now congressmen, to open up Alaska to eliminate the so-called Passenger Vessel Services Act, which makes foreign flagged vessels not be able to sail between U.S. ports. They want to open that up so you can actually have an Alaska cruise season, which would be crucial to a lot of the income, at least for a couple of months, for travel advisors. Where are you going to push for that as well?
Yes, indeed. So as you explained, and I'm sure your viewers know this well, due to this really quirky law, the PVSA, which has been on the books since 1886.
No, it's a law that just happened the other day, I guess, right?
Basically, cruise ships going from, we'll just stay on Alaska, Seattle to Alaska, have to call on a Canadian port because they're foreign-built vessels. But Canada closed their ports at the beginning of the pandemic, and then it extended that closure through February 2022. So it's been a concern, certainly for the Alaskans, but it didn't become real until our CDC finally gave the green light soon, hopefully this summer, to do some cruising here, which means unless either Canada reopens its ports or Congress makes a tweak to this law, there's no chance of doing the Alaska cruise season. So this actually moved pretty quick. This bill would temporarily suspend the PVSA only for Washington State to Alaska voyages and only until the Canadians open their ports. And it's limited in time, and it's limited in geography. And the Senate bill passed last week unanimously. So We've had to revamp our training materials. There's not a lot senators can do at this point, but House members, we want them to either co-sponsor the House version or vote for it, or just don't object if they try to take it up
How
unanimously.
quickly is a vote scheduled for this?
I've been looking at the calendars every week, kind of selfishly hoping that they don't pass it before legislative day, so we can take some measure of credit for it. But yeah, hopefully soon. I mean, the quicker Congress acts, the quicker the cruise lines can get their ship in order, and we can salvage some of the Alaska season.
Well, what you mentioned earlier, CDC also seems to be willing at some point this summer to help restart cruising. And then we have the situation in Florida where the state of Florida is suing the CDC, and you actually ASTA filed an amicus brief to that action. What do you hope to do there?
Well, we're trying to get our voice across, which is what we're doing here in Washington, D.C. right now to politicians. Getting our voice across in a high-profile court proceeding is important to us, too. So as my colleague made the point, there's kind of two main points of us intervening in this. What do we have to say that's different from what the folks who are filing the lawsuit saying? Well, first of all, we have members all over the country, and their members have their businesses have been devastated by the CDC's actions. And then if you look at a lot of the court filings, it talks about obviously cruise line impact, port operators, et cetera. They don't really talk a whole lot about travel agencies. And as Olga Ramuto said, 70% of all cruise trips are sold by travel agencies. Sure. So we wanted to get that point across. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the other thing, of course, is that after the SAVE Act, it became apparent today when we were in this press conference, this press event earlier for Legislative Day, that you might need more. I don't know if the SAVE Act has another paycheck protection plan or not. There may be an additional legislation that you need help from that somebody in Congress has to propose. Right?
Indeed. Our viewpoint is our members need relief one way or another. If it's targeted relief, like the kind that's contemplated in the SAVE Act, where we're specifically included, we'll take that. If it's general relief that not everybody, but a broad range is eligible for, like a PPP3, we would take that too. So if had there been a viable bill introduced, bipartisan, to extend the PPP for a third time, we'd be supporting that as well. Right. So we're actually working with other groups, working two tracks. We're working the SAVE Act, which is kind of a targeted approach, and we're working with other groups who are similarly situated, who need a PPP3. Right. And we're going to be working with them, and we're going to be pushing for, if you really want to target this money, use a really strict revenue threshold, 50% loss, even 75% loss. And that way that the federal assistance is going to those who really need it. Yeah. And you could extend.
And that has been the problem with PPP in the past.
That's right. Yeah. There was no revenue loss threshold for the first round, 25%. Second round, as you heard today, 82% for our members. And we're even willing to go deeply into 2021. Our members their business is still depressed. So if you really want to target it, there's ways to do that.
Now, what would you tell travel advisors out there about what they should be doing right now to help support your efforts here in Washington and try to get the whole profession through this crisis that we thought would be over by now?
Well, on the relief side, again, we want to be part of the conversation, again, whether it's targeted relief or general relief. So every House member, and there's 435 of them, need to co-sponsor the SAVE Act. There's 11 co-sponsors so far. I can say, looking at the list, we had something to do with about half of those. Those are based on constituent meetings that we sat in on, and then the member went and co-sponsored it, so we're happy about that. We want to get the Alaska cruising bill through. The third bill that we're talking about has to do with tax incentives for domestic travel and tax incentives for business meetings, trade shows, conventions. I think as we look at the recovery, we're not going to get back anywhere close to 2019 unless business travel comes back to health, unless international travel comes back to health as well. So we need the entire ecosystem restored to health, and we're going to need not just relief, but some tax incentives to do that as well.
Well, it's a very different situation than almost over a year ago when we were down here, when we were talking about real ID and maybe some independent contractor legislation, if I recall. We're now really fighting for the survival of...
I just want to say there's one more thing that advisors can do, and James, this won't surprise you that this is my recommendation, but we need every travel advisor out there who's not a member of ASTA to join ASTA. Right. So just like we're looking at targeted relief for our industry, as well as general relief. There are other entities out there lobbying for their own piece of the pie. They have 10 times as many lobbyists as we do. If we had more members than we have now, and there's 160,000 people in the industry, and there's 14,000 members of ASTA. We could do more on this front. So that's where we need the most support, to be frank.
So there you go. You got to be a member of ASTA. You got to get here, support what ASTA is doing down here on your behalf to help you get through this. It's crucially important. So go be a member of ASTA, get involved, and really this is the time. Last year, yeah, there were some interesting pieces of legislation. This year, it's make or break. It's really survival time. So, Evan, I want to thank you for clarifying all that stuff. It's been a weird year, for all of us. And obviously, you're back still pitching here, trying to help travel advisors survive. And I want to thank you for doing that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks everybody out there. Appreciate it.
I'm James Schillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.